So, who's ready to take some notes? Who's ready to take some notes? Because this is the Zelda timeline. This is the Zelda timeline. So everything goes good up until Ocarina of Time, right? It starts out, you got Skyward Sword, they introduce the Master Sword and the cycle of, the Triforce and all that sort of stuff. So that's why you've got repeating Zeldas, that's why you got repeating Links, and that's why you got repeating Ganondorfs, right? That's all because of Skyward Sword. Then you've got the Minish Cap, which is just like an explanation as to why Link has a hat, but that doesn't really matter. You've got you got the Four Swords, which is to do with the other villain of Zelda universe, with Vati, but he doesn't really show up that much, so you don't really need to worry about Vati. Then you've got Ocarina of Time. And in Ocarina of Time, there's 3 different outcomes to how that game plays out. You've got the first one, you've got the first timeline, where at some point along the journey, Link dies. That's the premise. So, at somewhere in the process of Ocarina of Time, the hero is defeated. I am not even joking. That's what it says. The hero is defeated. And in this one, this leads to the decline of Hyrule. So this leads to A Link to the Past, and the resurrection of Ganon. Then you've got Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons. Still the resurrection of Ganon. Then you've got Link's Awakening, which happens somewhere it just happens somewhere. Then you've got the Legend of Zelda, and then you've got the Adventure of Link. So that's that timeline. That's where Link dies, Hyrule goes to shit, and like it's just not a fun time, right? Then you've got the hero is triumphant. So Link wins. Yay! He defeats Ganon in Ocarina of Time. But Zelda, in her infinite wisdom, decides that she's going to send Link back to being a child. So that creates 2 timelines of itself. One timeline where you've got child Link goes back to the start, the start of Ocarina of Time, and he goes up to Zelda and he's like, hey, Zelda, like, Ganon's no good. And they tell the king. The king then proceeds to imprison Ganon, and they lock him into... They send Ganon to the Twilight Realm. That's what happens that's what happens in that timeline. This is what... and then Majora's Mask takes place because Link's just like, you know what? I needed a vacation. So he goes on a vacation to Termina and saves Termina. He then dies. Link then dies as an adult. Okay, I should preface that. Link dies somewhere in... He dies of old age, or he dies in battle, but he lives a life, right? He lives his life and he dies. Twilight Princess comes around, and this is where Ganon has figured out... He's in the Twilight Realm. He's figured out how to get out of the Twilight Realm, and then the long descendant of Link from Ocarina of Time defeats him, right? So that's what happens there, and that's when Ganon gets impaled by a fucking sword in the chest. So keep that one in mind. And then you've got Four Sword Adventures, which is just like the resurrection of Ganondorf and the resurrection of Vati. Again, not really the biggest, because you end up defeating him right away. Where does Link 2 come into play? Link 2 is the Adventure of Link, so that's where the hero dies. So that's all to do with child Link. Now, adult Link from the Ocarina of Time. the reality in which Link is sent back to live his childhood, that adult timeline is no longer left. It no longer has a Link. That Link has been sent back in time. He doesn't exist anymore. He is gone from reality. And so is the Triforce. So is the Triforce of Courage. Link's line is dead in this world. There is no... there's no Link. He doesn't exist. That's where Wind Waker takes place. Wind Waker takes place because of that. And the whole start of the game, it shows off the events that take place after Ocarina of Time. Because Zelda sent Link back, that timeline no longer has a Link. So when Ganon broke out of the Sacred Realm, right? Because remember, at the end of Ocarina of Time, they don't kill Ganon, they lock him in the Sacred Realm. So Ganon's sealed away. He breaks out of that seal and he starts wreaking havoc over the world. And they're like, oh, that's no worries. Link will come save us. Link doesn't exist. He's dead. He's gone. He went back to the old timeline. He ain't in this universe. So so the King of Hyrule and everyone, they start praying to the gods. They're like, please save us. And the gods decide that they're going to flood Hyrule. That's their master plan, to bide them some time with Ganon. Ganon's still alive. He's still doing his thing, but he's trapped at the bottom of the ocean with all of his minions, and he's just biding his time. Hundreds of years pass. Ganon somehow is still, like, I think just because of the Triforce of Power, he's still, like, alive. And then that's when Wind Waker takes place. He rises up to the surface to find the Triforce of Courage and the Triforce of Wisdom. That's why he's kidnapping young girls with blonde hair, because he's looking for Zelda. So Wind Waker Link is a new Link. Yes. So that brings us to the Link that we just played as. Link is just a kid. He has no connection to the hero of old, because the hero of old, remember, doesn't exist. Link didn't have kids. There's no way his bloodline could have kept on. So what happened when Ocarina of Time, like, that left? The Triforce of Courage had to go somewhere, so it broke apart into shards. And the people, the Zelda or whoever, the king, I don't know, they all decided, we're going to hide this shit. Right? They're going to hide the fragments of the Triforce of Courage so that one day somebody can piece them together, and then they'll be the new, like, harbinger of, like, the Triforce of Courage. So that's where we come in as Link in Wind Waker. So Link is literally just a kid who had his sister stolen and showed enough courage to go rescue her. And then so the gods, that's why it's all about proving yourself to the gods. That's why it's about, you know, working up the courage, like building up the courage to, like, do all these things, because you're not anyone in this timeline. So it's a really sweet sentiment. And Zelda's timeline. So Zelda, you were wondering why Tetra changed outfits. Tetra is Zelda. Tetra is the bloodline passed down of Zelda. So she is royalty. So as to why she is wearing different clothes, that's the king's doing. So the king turned her into Zelda to show her who she really is. He's like, oh, you're really Zelda, but, like, you're just in this new body. So he gave her old, like, princess body back, which is a little bit weird because, like, Zelda's really tan Tetra's really tan and Zelda's really white. So say what you will of that. And yeah, so then when they drowned Hyrule, they drowned everything with it, including the king of Red Lions, who was the king. So he's dead now. He's well and truly dead now. And with that, the spell that was keeping Zelda in, like, her Zelda form is broken. So Zelda goes back to being Tetra, the pirate queen, who we all love. And then that's where Wind Waker leaves off. Link and Tetra, they go to find a new land. They're literally going to make a new Hyrule. That's where Wind Waker leaves off. That's where Phantom Hourglass picks up. That continues on their journey. So that all happens there, and then down the line, and then like a few hundred years later, they find a new land and they call it New Hyrule, or they just call it Hyrule, and that's where Spirit Tracks takes place. If you've ever played Spirit Tracks, Zelda dies in this one. Just saying. So now, where does Breath of the Wild come into all this? Because Hyrule is just flooded. Spoilers? No, that's the start of the game in Spirit Tracks. That's the start of the game. So, Breath of the Wild takes place here, at the bottom. And do you know what it says about... And it takes elements from each and every one, because you can find Majora's Mask, you can find stuff from Wind Waker, you can find stuff from all of these Zeldas, you can find stuff from each and every timeline. Do you know what it says that it hints at? It says all of these are all true and not true at the same time, because they're all legends that have been passed down for so long that nobody knows if they're accurate or not. So they're they really are just saying, hey, we know it's complicated. Breath of the Wild is us just like coming back to one timeline again. So they're all real if you want, like, if it's so that they could, like, because I mean, when they were making these, they had no idea of a timeline. The fans wanted a timeline. You thought Breath of the Wild takes place before, or no, it takes place after it. Yeah, it's so that they can do whatever they want, and it's literally just, it's a legend, it's a myth, it's both reality, it's, you know, it's like mythology of old. There's some truth to mythology. There probably was a dude named Zeus who lived on top of a mountain. He probably wasn't a god. He was probably just some dude called Zeus. But you extrapolate that story through thousands of years, you get what we have now for like ancient Greek mythology. It's the same here. That's the idea. That's the idea. Is that all of these are just so old of stories that there is no way to like actually say which one's reality. Because they all feature some place in it. Like the great Deku trees in there, like there. So there's like, is this new Hyrule? Is it old Hyrule? Like, yeah. So it all happened, but actually didn't happen. Got it. Yeah, it all happened, but also it didn't happen. Link's Awakening is kind of popular. Well, Link's Awakening does and doesn't happen. That one's a dream. So, but yeah. Also, can we just appreciate that the Hyrule... This is called Hyrule Historia, by the way. This is an official book that, like Nintendo released. The timeline's on page 69. Can we just appreciate that for a second? Can we just appreciate that the timeline is on 69? Just saying. There's cool callbacks to nearly all the Zelda, all the games throughout Breath of the Wild too. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's why they can't be like, because if they excluded stuff from Wind Waker, like then you could be like, okay, it's not that. But because you do find, you know, you've got Koroks, you've got, you know, you've got the great Deku tree in his Korok form, and all the Kokiri in their Korok form. Like, that's only in this timeline. Rito are only in this timeline. Rito don't appear anywhere else. Zora are on this. Zora don't appear in this. So it's just like, so yeah, that's the Zelda timeline. Everybody. Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense.